Joining us now to react to the third GOP primary debate last night, we have Mike Leon, host of the news commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Which candidate stood out and who didn't perform well? Mike Leon, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, Tiffany, thank you so much for having me.
We heard from 5 presidential hopefuls last night from the GOP party. Which candidate stood out to you the most?
Well, I've talked about the debate so much on different outlets, and the first 2 debates really didn't go the way of this one, mainly because there's less candidates on the stage this time. Obviously, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum wasn't on the stage. Asa Hutchinson wasn't on the stage. Ryan Binkley wasn't on the stage, who we've had on our program. So I think it made for a smaller, intimate environment where candidates can actually get their questions out and not be interrupted. Even though we saw a little bit of that, I thought the first debate, and especially the second debate at the Reagan Library, a lot of interruptions. But in terms of the candidates that really stood out to me, I thought Nikki Haley gave some great answers again, and you're seeing why she's continuing to shoot up in the polling. The way she answered abortion and women's reproductive rights, her team has really harped on her about messaging to this. We just saw it play out in 2023 here earlier this week, where the abortion issue was on the ballot in Ohio, and Ohioans voted to put abortion rights into the state constitution. So she answered that question really effectively. I thought Ron DeSantis actually, now again, he's the governor of this state, so he's a little bit popular in the state, but I thought he answered some of the questions a lot better, specifically when it came to former President Trump, why he should be there, not in Hialeah, Florida, where he was doing a rally. And then I thought Governor Chris Christie answered a couple different questions with respect to the Israel-Hamas war and some of the things he did after 9/11 as governor of New Jersey really well. So those are the 3 that kind of stood out to me.
And given this smaller field, we did hear more from each candidate. Who didn't perform well?
Well, I've made this analogy a bunch before about Yogi Berra, the great Yankees baseball player, saying it's getting late early. And I think for Tim Scott, it's getting late early. I thought the senator was struggling at times when the moderators asked him about Ukraine funding and how specifically he would go about approving that if he was president of the United States. And then we get to Vivek Ramaswamy, who has really stormed on the scene. And I compare him a lot to a TED Talk guy. And as somebody just a couple years older than him, I don't know if I would trust myself to be president of the United States. And given that I've worked in product and technology, similar to some of the fields that he has worked in and companies that he has launched, I think he really showed his age and his lack of knowledge on foreign policy things, especially when it comes to Taiwan, when it comes to what is happening in Ukraine. And then at the beginning of the debate itself, actually attacking RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel and really going after her and saying that this debate should not be held by this forum, by NBC News, and kind of calling out the media for some of the things that they've done under the Trump administration. So I thought Senator Tim Scott didn't give the best answers of the night, not too much fanfare of people in the crowd. And I thought Vivek Ramaswamy really showed his age and lack of experience when it comes to foreign policy.
As you mentioned, Trump was just down the road about 11 miles away conveniently. Now, all 5 candidates on stage made their case for why they're better than Trump. Who was most convincing, or were they just fighting for Plan B?
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth, Tiff. I mean, I think they're fighting for Plan B, unfortunately. We've seen all of the national polling, especially the 10 biggest polls that have Trump and Biden kind of neck and neck right now, Trump leading him in a bunch of key critical states. I was on earlier this week kind of explaining that New York Times Siena College poll. But I think right now, and you're noticing it too on the Democratic side of the aisle, former Representative Tim Ryan mentioning that President Biden should step aside. You're seeing more people starting to call for President Biden to step aside. And I think Republicans, at least establishment Republicans and folks that I've talked to, would really like one of these candidates to kind of ascend to the top. And it's tough because Ron DeSantis tried his best yesterday by cutting to some of the core issues that are playing out right now that the Republicans are championing on, while also trying to not alienate the base that's following former President Trump. But like you mentioned, he's 11 miles down the road and has, if not as big a crowd as what was in attendance at the Adrian R. Center here down in Miami. So it's very tough because it's so early right now. You know, we're still about 10 weeks away from Iowa. So who knows what will finish in the top 3 there in terms of the ballot for Iowa. But I really think, unfortunately, these candidates right now are playing for second place. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't get their message out and continue to try to, hammer home that President Trump should be here defending some of the things that he did or didn't do in his administration, while also harping on the ways you have done things in your respective states, whether it be Florida, South Carolina, New Jersey, for DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Chris Christie, respectively. So I think they're fighting for second place, but I still think that these debates are valuable to kind of find out a little bit more about these candidates and why they should replace the former president as head of the GOP ticket.
Mike Leon, thank you so much for your time.
Tiffany, thank you so much.